On almost any Facebook page, the developer's link at the bottom takes me to the documentation and the tools that I can use to develop Facebook apps. Here I'm going to take a look at the documentation. Now, the wiki for Facebook has all of the information that you need to not only get started but to finish your application. And it's divided into these 5 separate main areas of content. We're talking about FPML now. So what I'm going to do is to go to the section here on FPML and show you that it's organized into sections for users and groups, profile specific, visibility on the profile, embedded media, and all the others that you can see here. I'm not going to go through each of these. I'm going to show you the basic syntax of FPML and how it's constructed so that you can then take a look at other FPML code and see how it works and use new FPML constructs that you may not have encountered before. I'm going to start with the pronoun element because that happens to be one of the easiest ones to demonstrate. So I will open this page and show you how this is done, and I'm going to go in another window to the FPML test console so that I can flip back and forth between the wiki and the syntax and the test console. Now, all of the syntax for the documentation in the wiki starts with a title, followed by a description, attributes, and examples. There may be other sections, but this is a fairly confined one. And this is an FPML element called FB pronoun. One thing to watch out for is that the syntax is case sensitive, and the wiki is capitalizing the first character of the title. So you just have to know that when it says capital F, lower b, pronoun, that's because the title capitalization overrides the syntax capitalization. When you actually see the FBML in action, you'll see that the F is lowercase. Now, in flipping back and forth between the documentation and the test console, what you can do is you can copy an example from here, come into the test console and paste it here. This is the section where your FBML needs to be entered. And the user ID here is an example for the user ID. You will need an actual user ID that you can use to construct your FBML. And I will pick up a user ID and enter it here. And here is one that I've been used, 575817312. This is an actual user ID. And I can preview it by clicking here. You can see it's contacting Facebook. It's asking Facebook to convert the FPML into the HTML code that will be shown here as source and that will be displayed up here in the preview. And the pronoun is going to return they. That's the syntax. Now, let's take a look more closely at it. Just as with HTML, I have an element which is shown here. It starts with a bracket and ends with a closing bracket. Now, we are now strict here using XHTML standards, and the strictness that you will need to worry about is that attributes must be quoted, even if they are obviously numbers. They must all be quoted, and every element must be terminated. This is syntactically the same as this element. This is a closing tag. This is an opening tag. And in the case of some elements, like a traditional HTML paragraph element, the content of the element goes in the middle here. And then comes the closing tag. This is an element. This is a tag. Many people call this a tag. Technically, this is an element that consists of an opening tag, closing tag, and content between the two tags. But if you want to call it a tag rather than an element, you will not be alone in this world. In the case of an element that has no content, such as pronoun, you can self-terminate it by adding a space, the closing slash, and the closing bracket at the end of it. This is an element that consists of a self-terminated tag. So that's the basics of the structure of FPML. Now let's go back to the documentation.